Fired up to talk to somebody about wrapping up the Western Conference Finals and maybe a look ahead of the NBA Finals. Austin Rivers joins us now from The Ringer. He's on the YouTube page for our NBA coverage and also with Posh on Off Guard's podcast. What's up, man? Good to see you.
How you doing, bro? What's up?
I'm good.
Thank you for having me.
I'm good. Okay, you have an incredible perspective, obviously, being with Minnesota last year and then Denver prior to that. So I know you've covered a lot of that stuff. We're already past that series. But, I really liked Minnesota's chances in the Western Conference Finals. What have you seen that had led to a 3-1 advantage for Dallas?
I did not see the series going this way. With all the momentum that Minnesota had, especially coming off of a win versus Denver, you would think the confidence at that point, just with the snowball effect, I just thought that team's momentum was so strong. But Kyrie and Luka have simply picked them apart in the pick and roll. Just from an offensive standpoint, I haven't seen the same aggression from Ant the first few games when they got behind. And then to add to that, Karl's been inconsistent with the exception, obviously, of last game, second half of last game, where he really came alive. So you have these different aspects of, the first couple of games, it looked really weird. Ant's energy was really down. He just looked gassed. He was tired as hell. And then offensively, that translated. Just you could see in the shots that he was shooting, there are a lot of difficult shots. Wasn't getting to the basket, wasn't getting to the line as much. Now you have Karl settling. I forgot what the number was. It said us to the first 3 games, his 3-point.
3 of 22.
Yeah, so, he was settling, so you have all these different factors. And then the simple matter of Rudy and some of these guys that they have are really great defenders. But the team that they're going against, it's all matchup, right? And I might get slack for saying this, but if Denver beats Minnesota, I don't think Dallas is winning this series. It's all matchup for me. And I think Rudy does a lot of different things, but they have 2 guys that are just ISO killers. And that's Luka and Kyrie. And they're able to be very, effective in the pick and roll over someone like Rudy, who usually has a dominant, defensive series or what we've seen in the past. He's getting on switches and they're just able to get by him and create offense. And you have the emergence of PJ Washington, some of these other guys. It just seems like the tables have turned. I just didn't see this coming. I thought Minnesota was a bigger team, better defensive team, and I thought they were deeper. If you look at their bench, and we haven't really got production from Nickeil Alexander. We haven't got production from a lot of these guys who had these great series before. So you have all these little factors adding up to where now we find ourselves down 3-1. We'll see what happens now, but the series is most likely probably over.
Rudy's facing a ton of criticism here, but and anybody who's ever listened to the pod knows I'm not his number one fan, but I think I am calm enough to respect what he brings to the game every night. And I made the point in the open. It's okay, sometimes I'll be tempted to go, wonder if they want to move Rudy out and get a little bit more spacing. But then when you see what Dallas mouths just start to water. And you saw that stretch at the end of the third quarter where they're okay, fine, you actually want to do this. We are in attack mode the entire time. So you were teammates with him, and last year there was all sorts of ups and downs, and he's been even better this year after I'd say kind of a disappointing first year. What's it like? What is he like knowing that it seems like the criticism is even more excessive than probably what's deserving of?
Yeah. It's tough, man. I try to explain this to people. Rudy's defensive accolades and success comes from the impact he has overall on defense, right? So it's when you look at the team defensive numbers, you see there at the top, people don't count the stats that don't count or don't show up on a stat sheet. The shots altered by him. How many shots last game did Kyrie go to the basket and have to flip up a left-hand tough floater or shot and it came off the glass or it came off the rim because he had to shoot some ridiculous layup? And again, he hits some of those, Kyrie does, but a lot of these shots are altered. And then the fact is, when guys drive in the paint, they're looking for Rudy. You feel Rudy even if Rudy's not even near you. He has an impact on defense, altering shots and just with his presence alone, not to mention the defensive communication he has as the quarterback behind you, because the big is always a quarterback on defense. They see everything. Everything's in front of them. And Rudy's always been notoriously, in my opinion, just from guys that I've played with, one of the better defensive bigs in terms of communication, always harping on different things, holding guys accountable to being in the right spots, which is why you've seen that transition of Minnesota defense going from what it was to being a top-tier defense in the league now. And I think that's why he gets these awards, is because he's so effective at that. And then you add the block shots that he does get and all the other things. The issue that people have with Rudy is his mistakes or the things he's not good at. They're so loud, Ryan. Like he's it's just like he's a little goofy. If his footwork in terms of guarding a guard is actually pretty solid, if you're asking, to run him off the three and get to the basket, but is he good at stopping on a dime? I mean, how much slack did he get for the one-on-one defense versus Luka? It's like, how many bigs are going to go out there and guard him? I saw Nembhard cook Al Horford 3 times in a row in that series. We didn't say anything. So Luka, who's a 10 times better the player than Nembhard, can't cook Rudy on a one-on-one. I mean, there's no big in the league that's stopping him from getting that 3 off. By the way, he took away the left. Everyone knows Luka likes going left and stepping back. He had to do 3 counter moves before he went to the right, stopped on a dime, and shot that tough 3. He just made it. That's what Luka does. Rudy has those plays like that, and people are like, how has he won 4? Because he's won so many. It'd be one thing if he won 1 award, right? I don't think anybody would be even having a problem with Rudy. The fact that he's won 4 Defensive Player of the Years, and then we see the problem where they have to hide him sometimes on defense, and we're like, wait. We have to hide the Defensive Player of the Year? That doesn't make sense. And then you add the fact to it, which doesn't help his case, he didn't guard Jokic that well. And they had to put Karl on him for most of the series. Karl guarded him just as well as he. And that's an issue, because we're like, there's only so many bigs you have to guard, Rudy. There's like 2 offensive bigs in the NBA. You got Joel and you got the other ones on your team, Karl. So you got Joel, and in terms of post presence, Joel and Nikola. You got 2 guys. So like you got
to throw AD in there. I'd throw AD in there. Don't you think?
AD. Oh yeah. Fair. Anthony Davis. So we got like 3, 4, if we're missing somebody else, bigs in the league that you have to like suit up for. A guard has to suit up every single night and guard the best player. I've had this argument with Rudy many times. I feel like the guard position is the most underrated position in defense, and we never get that award ever or considered for it for whatever reason, considering like 80% of the points that come on a nightly basis usually are from guards in the NBA. So you would think the guys guarding them might be up for an award once in a while, but that's usually not the case. So I think that's the things that people have against Rudy right now, especially right now, is it's like, bro, no one's asking you to guard Nikola, but there's no way Karl should guard him better than you. And then we find ourselves in the conference finals, and we have to like find ways to strategically like not hide you, but like put you in positions to succeed, where like a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, you're supposed to just roll out there and tell them to go dominate, right? So that's like Perkins and all these guys who are coming out saying this stuff about him. It's gotten a lot. It's gotten, to the point where it's very toxic, that we're forgetting all the things that Rudy does do well. It's just not as loud. It's not as fun to watch. It's not things that show up on a stat sheet, So it's tough, man.
I feel like the American players have been on one for like 2 years, where the American players are going, and this is coming from somebody who's not exactly like a Rudy defender, or more so maybe the transaction, but there's parts of it where I completely respect it. And I'm telling anybody that watches it, like, watch the next time Rudy's out. And depending on what the Minnesota lineup is, if they want to go with their small version, where Minnesota's still big in their small lineup, but watch how quickly Kyrie attacks off the catch. Watch Jaden Hardy if he's in there. He had the 2 plays. So even I'm guilty of it a little bit, going like, I wonder what it would look like maybe not having Rudy pinning himself to the rim, and then you can't space him out. Maybe it's more about him being an old school defensive center where there's no stretchability on offense, and that means Gafford, and when Lively's healthy, they're always at the rim. Like, maybe that's more of the downside to it. So like, I'm not saying that now I'm trying to like zag on everyone's criticism of him. The shot by Luka, you're absolutely right. There's not at center. Like, I love Wemby. I think Luka turns him eventually on the third move if he wants to. I mean, granted, Wemby seems to be able to reach beyond anything we've ever seen before, but that's an impossible spot for a big 7+ footer against a guy like Luka, who's offensively as good as anyone in the league. So it feels very, I don't know what it is. I guess I didn't understand that we had this many ex-players that are Patriots or current players that are Patriots, because it feels like a lot of your NBA peers really hate the international guys, and that's part of it with Rudy as well.
Yeah, there's something about Rudy that bothers players. I don't know what that is either. It's there though. I mean, his respect. Yeah. I mean, you even saw it with Luka when Luka just spazzed on him for hitting that shot. That felt like it was more than just, and that's a foreign player and a foreign player. There's something there with Rudy. A lot of it stems from his success. This is a guy who's the first ballot Hall of Famer. And whether people like to hear that or not, it's just what it is. When you win four defensive players of the defensive player of the years, it's just no question, man. He's like in the likes of I don't even know. He's like with Mutombo and Ben Wallace. I don't even know who's the people who won that award, but it's like only a few guys. He's going. So that's just what people have to wrap their heads around. I think that in people's brains, and then they turn on the TV and see this guy get cooked on a one-on-one, or they see Nikola having 40, 10, and 12, and they're like, that's not right. They're like, that doesn't look good. That someone explain to me why this guy keeps winning this award. And you have Draymond and you have all these guys just after him. You know what I mean? So it doesn't help. He's in an American league with American players saying this. Then he has Nikola doing his thing. Then he goes to the next series and he has Luka hitting a game winner on him. And then they're getting crushed. They're down 3-1. They're scoring in any way possible that they want. The pick and roll has been disastrous. Their defensive coverage and the pick and roll has been horrendous.
What are they doing wrong? What are they doing wrong?
Well, for one, I don't buy into Dallas's shooting, other than those two. We know what they get with the lob threat. They have been trying to take away this three. If Josh Green hits a damn three, then so be it. I'm not saying leave him open, but you can't take away the basket. They keep trying to play both. All Luka's doing, and Luka's better than anybody. I'm dumbing this down as if this is this simple, but the dude is the most. Other than Nikola, he's the smartest basketball player in the NBA. You could throw LeBron in there too. The way he picks people apart in the pick and roll, you can't teach it. He comes off and he's not even looking at the roller. He is looking at that weak side defender, just patiently waiting, just messing with him with his eyes. And he'll look at the basket like he's throwing that lob, and he throws it to the corner. And they're so worried about the corner three. PJ Washington's been a problem. That's been the main issue. PJ Washington's hitting that shot right now. So now they're trying to adjust, run out to the corner. This guy's getting lob after lob. I mean, how many pick and roll points do they get a game in with Luka and Gafford, or Luka and Lively, or Kyrie and Gafford, and Kyrie and Lively, or Kyrie or Luka hitting it to the corner? So right now they need to figure out who they're willing to give up a shot. Sometimes it comes down to that. You got to look at the floor and say, okay, we got Josh Green on here. We got Derrick Jones, who is a guy who wants a straight line drive. He can hit a three. That's not a guy who's going to hit 7 threes in a game. So these are guys that you have to live and die with some of these shots. You cannot just keep giving them lob after lob after lob after lob. Those dunks will converge a defense, and then now we're getting wide open threes. I would rather protect the basket and run out and get a contest. And if these guys hit a three over a contest, then so be it. But they're getting picked apart in the pick and roll right now. This is a weak side issue. So this is something that Minnesota just has to clean up. It's their weak side defense. They've been getting killed all series long. And Luka is not the person to be having weak side problems with. I mean, that's just what he does, is pick people apart. So, you saw a little bit better last game, especially in the second half. I don't know what clicked for them, Minnesota personally. You saw them start to take that away a little bit. But, you can't let Luka cook, Kyrie cook, and then also get solid play from Derrick Jones and PJ. You can't give everybody everything. Somebody has to be taken away here. So I don't know.
Okay, so on the other side defensively, and I know the defensive numbers are closed. I brought this stuff up in the open too, where Dallas closes with the best defense in the NBA the last 15. Yeah. And, you look at the
crazy
lively development in Gafford, but look through these series, the defense that Derrick Jones has played on perimeter players, that PJ Washington looked like SGA was the primary assignment. And, SGA was really hard for him, even though he was fantastic in that series, and he wasn't really being supported, I think, consistently enough from his number two, whoever that was supposed to be that night. So there's just a lot that's going on here defensively with Dallas to tell you really good numbers. But Luka's kind of the low man. And he also can kind of take those possessions off and save his energy to close. Yep. And I know, look, those guys didn't shoot it well in game 4. That's probably not going to happen in 4 straight games. So is there something more there where, hunting is its own topic? And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and it was funny because it's like in football, if you see a bad matchup, not that I am in a hurry to do NFL, NBA coverage with you right now. Maybe we'll save it for the end. if you have a corner that you think is like, oh, he's the fifth corner because like their top guys hurt, 2 guys went down during the game, so let's just throw the ball at him. Well, a lot still has to go right for you to take advantage of that mismatch that you think you have in a football game. And in the NBA, when you say, okay, let's hunt Kyrie or let's hunt Luka, sometimes you'll see that more at the end of a game.
Yeah,
but
it usually does.
But it's still like easier said than done. And I was talking to this coach about it. It's like you can't just like throw away everything that you're doing in all of your system to go, let's just hunt that guy. So having said all of that, I still feel like there's more opportunities to maybe try to bring Luka up to get him in the play, to have him expend more energy. I mean, Kyrie's help defense and his decisions is probably the best defense I think I've seen him play in like 6 years. But do you think that there's more opportunities for the perimeter players, specifically Ant, with some of that stuff?
Absolutely. And again, like you said, it is hard to just pick on someone and find that matchup, right? It's very difficult to just be like, hey, let's grab Luka up here. Luka ain't coming up. By the time you try to call him up, he's going to send somebody else up, and then he'll take the low guy. They'll just replace by design. Luka's been getting picked on his entire life on defense. By now, he probably figured out on how to hide and like how not to be a guy who's up there on an island. So, I mean, that's just like an end of the game scenario where you can maybe find those matchups. And also, it's a problem, Ryan. You don't want to be the whole game trying to find one-on-one matchups because it can mess up your whole offense. Now we're not getting good offense. We're just trying to find one-on-one matchups, and that's not going to work throughout a game. So, Dallas has done a good job. Yes, hiding Luka, Kyrie, trying to save their energy. Kyrie's actually been pretty damn good on defense, to be completely honest. He's got great hands. And like you said, PJ's been a guy I never even knew as a defender who's played this well at defense. I knew Derrick Jones could because he showed that in Miami. But he's now really shown the level of a player that he can be as just like I wouldn't call him a 3-and-D. I don't know if it's a dunk and D. I don't know what is it, a straight line and D. He's going to come up with his own like new player that people are going to try to find. But they have guys who are very capable of guarding. Cleaver's been a huge, now that they have him back, he's a guy that can guard 1 through 5, really. He's a good guy that could switch. They have multiple guys who can, Gatford's done a great job chasing guards around on switches. So they could switch 1 through 5 with a lot of those lineups. And to dumb this down, man, like, I think this is just a good example of just their 2 best players are just going to be like, yo, there's not a duo better than us. We're going to go into each game and we're just going to figure it out and win the game. It's like a pickup game. It's like if we're playing pickup on the street and Kyrie and Luka had their team, it's just like that team might win. They're just going to go win the game. They figure it out. It's like no one had Dallas going this far. No one had them beating Minnesota, or maybe some people did, but a lot of people did not have them beating Minnesota, especially not this way, up 3-1. When they had obviously they're not going to shoot like they did last game, 3 games in a row. It's not going to happen. So it's just like, it's really hard for Minnesota, especially a young team, right, to consistently have good offense versus a team like Dallas when you're talking about picking on someone the right way. You don't want Ant to fall into that trap. We don't need him doing any more one-on-one. You need him playmaking. You need Nikhil. You need Jaden McDaniels. You need some of these guys to step up in scoring. They need fluidity in their offense. So even though Dallas has a couple guys who aren't, one-on-one defenders, it hasn't really worked in Minnesota's favor so far in terms of them being able to exploit Luka at all. They need to find ways to get him more involved on defense. They just do. But so far, he hasn't really been able to do anything. He's just been sitting in that low man spot most of the game.
Okay, I want to try to get like the real perspective on this because these are your teammates, and I find Cat incredibly frustrating. There were a couple plays where as Austin chuckles a bit. I don't know if he's your boy or not. Maybe he was.
That's my guy.
So maybe
that's my guy.
All right. So he's your guy.
I totally understand. I know where this is headed. Trust me.
Okay. What happens when he just decides to reach in 50 feet away from the basket?
Frustrating thing in the world.
And he wants an and one because the floor hit him. The pass with 2.5 seconds left to Rudy there's 2.5 on the shot clock, and he threw it into Rudy to create. And there's just a lot of plays. Like this team, I don't think is a dumb team because they wouldn't have been this good this year if they were a dumb team. But to see them close the way they have, and it's not all on Ant has had numerous plays where I'm like, what the hell's happening to you right now?
Yeah, that weak side defensive clip the other day was ridiculous when PJ got the corner three and Ant was just like, he like traded places with someone. He's just like walking around and they swing and PJ Washington gets a wide open three and tries. They just have like that. Go ahead, finish your stuff.
What happens in a timeout after like one of those cat moments with Finch and all of you in the huddle? What are those moments like?
It usually is someone like, yeah, it usually is. It's usually a Kyle Anderson or someone like that. If we're going to talk about last year, my experiences, it'd be myself or Kyle Anderson or Finchy, like yelling at somebody. And I don't say that in a mean way, but like just trying to hold somebody accountable because they do have these lapses. Karl is self-inflicted, and I love Karl. I love that he had a big bounce back game yesterday after the internet was just trolling him the past week. For him to come back and have a second half, 20 points, he honestly won them the game. Credit to Karl. But Karl has defensive lapses, and they're not like 10-second lapses. It's 1 second. This guy will play great defense for a whole possession, be in the right place, slide his feet, talk on defense, help side, and then reach in the last second or try the offensive foul where he pump faked and elbowed PJ in the face. Like he just does these little plays, and then you wonder why, like at the end of the game, he's got 5 fouls, or even throughout a game, he's in foul trouble and he has no rhythm. So now he's out there forcing threes instead of getting to the basket. We always talk about why Karl doesn't go to the basket as much. Half the time he's in foul trouble. He's scared to drive in there and get a charge or get an offensive foul. The little tic-tac fouls with him, I can't diagnose why no one has that answer, right? I don't know why. Because he's a high IQ basketball player. He's been playing in the NBA. He's not a rookie. This guy's a vet at this point. He's been in the league, 7, 8 years? He's played enough basketball at this point to know not to reach in or do the ticky-tack fouls, and yet we continually see that from him. That's a bad habit that just needs to be broken. How that is, I don't know. He knows it's harmful to his team. He knows not to do it because you could see when he does it, he'll like do that face he makes, or he'll look at the rest and be like, how? And everyone behind him is just like, Karl. You know what I mean? So like he knows better. I don't know how to diagnose that. That is a self-inflicted bad habit that Karl has that just needs to be undone because he's actually a pretty damn solid defender, especially with bigs. He showed that last series with Nikola. And even guarding Nikola, how many times did he reach in last second and give Nikola a foul? And you're like, Karl, you played great defense. If he hits the shot, he hits the shot. You don't bail him out. Yeah. And Ant's I think there's a different level, and I've told this before. And I say this with respect because I know he's in the conference finals, which is, one way from the finals, and I know he has a lot in his shoulders. I think there's a different level of stamina Ant can reach. I think there's a different level of stamina. And we have those comparisons to Mike and Kobe and some of these guys that we've already thrown at Ant. Those are some heavy names. The one thing we knew about those two guys is they did not get tired consistently. Their stamina was at an all-time high, whether that's mental toughness, whether it's because those two lived in the gym. We'd have to interview Mike to get those answers, or maybe Tim Grover would have those answers better than anybody. But there's a different level of stamina with Ant. And I see too many times Ant on defense have these plays where he like stands up or he just like won't be involved. There was a couple plays last game that blew my mind, Ryan. They called Ant up to get on the switch. They wanted Ant up, and Ant's supposed to be a really good defender, and he is, because I've seen him lock up guys when he wants to. Jaden Hardy just drove by him a couple times with a layup. They were looking for Ant on switches, and I had to sit back in my seat like, whoa. There's no way they're calling Ant up for a pick and roll switch. He's one of the best defenders in the league on the ball. They knew he was tired and gassed and trying to hide, and they called him up. So I saw him tired in game 1. I saw him still tired in game 2. His stamina just needs to it has to reach a different level for them to have that success, okay? It just has to happen. He gets too tired, especially in the fourth. You just see it. There's no way they should ever be picking on Ant on defense. It should never happen. He's too good of a defender. And I saw that multiple times last game. And we're not even talking about Kyrie and Luka. We're talking about like their fourth guard, like trying to find Ant on a switch to go by him. That can't happen.
Okay, knowing that Dallas, likely to pull through this and having to take on the Clippers, who, from a depth standpoint, it's still not an easy out without Kawhi. We could talk about the track records of their better players in the playoffs, where it doesn't necessarily scare you. And then the Oklahoma City series, that still, who knows what would have happened in Game 7 if PJ isn't fouled in the corner. And look, I thought it was the right call. So then you have Minnesota, which is a completely different challenge. Like, they've played 3, I think, different kinds of teams, where you look at Boston, where they probably would have had an easy time if everybody was still healthy. Yep. And yet they cruise through the East. They haven't really been challenged. Thinking back to like different playoff matchups, and this becomes now really more a discussion of potentially Dallas and Boston and where you like the matchups, where you don't like the matchups. But is there anything to be said of like the battle testing of the last month and a half, of the scars that you've put on yourself to get to the finals, where one team has had far greater challenges than the other team coming from the East?
I do. I would say I don't if there was a little bit of a challenge with Boston, but they have just steamrolled right through the Eastern Conference. Every team that they've played, their best player in the opposite team has gotten hurt or gone down with an injury of some sort, whether it was later in the series or in the series, regardless of which. It's been 4-0, 4-1, 4-1. And now they're sitting there in the finals. The advantage that they have, obviously, is legs. They're going to have their legs. They're going to have their rest. Their team is fully healthy, with the exception of Porzingis, who, my God, what a situation for him to be in. He's hurt, and they're not even like rushing him to get back, because like just steamrolling through the Eastern Conference. They're just telling them, hey, just get your health, relax. They've had more rehab time with this guy than any other player could dream of through the playoffs. So they're sitting there healthy. Meanwhile, Dallas has gone through these tests like you alluded to. I do think the more tests you go through in the playoffs and have success, the higher your confidence and the higher your team builds, just in terms of preparing for what the finals is going to be like. So when we talk about a Dallas Celtics final, who's more ready to play in the finals? Dallas would be the answer. Now, does that translate to them winning games? I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe because the Celtics are rested, they have their legs. It's so hard to like scientifically put a diagnosis on some of these things. But I always like when a team gets battle tested. When you look in the history of sports, it's very rare a team just sweeps through the entire finals and then gets to the championship, and that's a sweep too. We haven't really seen that. It helps when a team has gone through a couple of battles. You've tested each other. We've been through some adversity. It usually builds a little bit of strength and confidence within a team. You've seen Dallas had to go through that. And I think they're obviously more battle tested than Boston, but it ain't that much. I mean, listen, I'll give them credit for the OKC series, but other than that, they played a Clippers team that didn't have Kawhi Leonard, like you said. They won that series playing against a team that didn't have their best player. I give them credit for OKC. It's a great battle, great team.
Awesome,
but they're very young.
Win. Yeah,
great. Yeah,
I mean, still,
and they're just young. OKC is going to be a much better team as the years go on. We all know that. Now we find themselves in the Minnesota series, and maybe we're not giving them enough credit. Listen, Minnesota's fully healthy. They don't have nobody injured. This is a team, we just talk about battle tested. They just beat Denver. That's what's so strange. Like, I thought Minnesota's energy, just confidence would come into this series just overflowing. That was the main reason I had them winning. They just beat the best team in basketball. I'm thinking like, this team is going to come in here, with the exception of Boston, you can obviously put in there, but on the Western Conference, at least, Denver has been the best team. And they went there and won that series in such a dramatic fashion that I just thought the confidence and the energy would be there. And it just seemed zapped. And now we find ourselves down 3-1, and I still feel like Minnesota's a better team. I don't know how we're here. I wasn't a believer in this Kyrie Luka project based off of what history has shown. A lot of this has been Kyrie, man. Like, I haven't seen Kyrie with this light, Ryan, and I haven't seen him play with this type of energy and like aura since like Cleveland. And this is even different because he just looks more happy and at peace being the number 2. I think he's found his niche. You're not a 1A. You're not a 1A guy. You're capable because on a good night, you're one of the most skilled basketball players to ever touch a ball. But he seems like he's found himself on that team. I've never seen Luka like somebody like him. We've tried to pair every single player with Luka, and Luka's been like, There's like a high respect Luka has with Kyrie. Every time Kyrie hits a tough shot, look at Luka's reaction. He's like looking at the camera, holding his head. He's so infatuated with Kyrie. And I think that chemistry just coming on as of late, it's like a March Madness thing. It's like they're just clicking at the right time. And you could just see this momentum growing, and their role players are playing great. And now Jason Kidd's a hero again when he was possibly going to get fired a month ago, 2 months ago. You know what I mean? It's so crazy that the NBA works, but like we're seeing this team kind of jump into it. I don't know what it is with Kai. I mean, that'd be a great interview to ask. Like, what's changed? What's got you here?
We're not going to get him on this show. Maybe you guys will get him. You and Paj.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's coming on. Yeah.
Last thing, I want to finish with this because I found the conversation around it. I mean, you're just an absolute tastemaker when it came to the NBA NFL comp thing. You went on with McAfee, and I think the quote was, you thought there were 30 players today in the NBA that could play in the NFL, whereas the other way around, it wouldn't happen. I do wonder if there's something for my world where you could ask 30, and could 30, not NBA, just sports podcasters become great radio hosts? Because I think 30 radio hosts could become great podcasters. Not nearly as impressive or as important. I get your point. Okay. I think where you hurt yourself is when you said 30. I
know it's wrong. I was wrong. I should have said 50.
Wow. Doubling down on it. So what's that been like for you?
Well, first off, it's been really good, to be completely honest. I mean, ESPN had to be happy. I only created content free for everybody for like 2 weeks. People ran with that topic. It wasn't even intentional, to be completely honest. I said it half-heartedly. It was a non-serious conversation with Pat because he was talking about NBA players being prima donnas and all these things. And I was like, hey, man, listen, you can talk about NBA players, but I can take 30 of us and throw in the league. You can't take 30 of you guys, put them in the... Done. I said that one clip. He clips it out. So Austin Rivers says, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, calm down. First off, is it 30? I don't know. It could be 50. It could be 10. It could be 15. I don't know. I just know there's a history. This is the difference here. And I don't even want to I don't want to talk. First off, I have a high respect for NFL players. Okay. They're freak athletes. All right. Freakish athletes. With that being said, there are so many positions and that's sport. And you're only playing on one side of the ball. Right? That there are guys that I can slot in certain positions with levels of training that I think can translate into the NFL. Whereas NFL skills obviously don't translate into basketball. It's not even the same thing. So it just happens to be what it is. They got offended by it, but I have guys, a long list of players, Ryan, that I can go to and point at and say, these guys never played football. They played basketball their entire lives. They didn't make the NBA, and they said, you know what? Let me go try football. And not only did they make the NFL, they became one of the best players at their position. Tony Gonzalez is an Hall of Fame tight end. Jimmy Graham, Antonio Gates. My class. Ricardo Gathers was a guy who played at Baylor. Didn't make Rico. Didn't make the NBA. So guess what he did? He went and played in the NFL. That's why when DJ Burns was on that run in NC State, nobody was talking about him playing in the NBA. We had guys on ESPN, Shannon Sharp included, NFL players included, saying, you know what? We should go get DJ Burns. He should play in the NFL. Why is that? My point is because a big part of playing in the NFL is physicality alone, which we have in the NBA. We have guys who are 6'7", 6'8". Travis Kelce dapped up Luka Doncic after the game, and the whole world was like, yo, they're the same size. Duh. Those are our point guards. If I took Obi Toppin and prime LeBron James or a prime Derrick Rose or Westbrook or a Lou Dort or Aaron Gordon, you want me to keep going? If I took these guys and just go train for 6 months to go try to be a tight end or a wide receiver and slot as maybe even just end zone targets. Come on, man. Bro, there's a long history of us guys doing it, but there has never, ever, ever, there never will be, Ryan. There never will be a guy who's never played basketball before in his life, who's playing college football, that's going to go, I'm not going to make the NFL. I'm just going to go play in the NBA. It'll never happen. It's never happened. And the delusion of some of these guys thinking yo, I could go out there and play 5-6 minutes and get 5 fouls and chuck up some shots. Why the hell would that get you in the NBA? No, there's is that what role players do, is play 5-6 minutes and foul 5 times and chuck up 5 shots? Are you out of your mind? The role players in the NBA were best players wherever they came from in college. They're All-American, Big Donald's All-American. People don't understand, the end of the bench of the NBA player. Jaden Hardy's a guy who's the 8th man, and the guy was a top 5 player in his class. People don't get it. So it's just I understand you're mad at me. Maybe it was the right message, wrong messenger. I don't know what it is. Maybe LeBron James should have said that comment, But it is the truth. And I had plenty of NFL players, Brandon Marshall, Saquon Barkley, a lot of guys hit me up and be like, yo, you're right. Just some of these guys are sensitive and they just don't want to hear it. He goes, if I could have played in the NBA, I'd definitely be playing basketball over in NFL. And I could take a whole bunch of y'all and come play over here. He goes, no doubt. So it is what it is. I talked about America's sport. It's America's sport. It's football. It's good old American football. And they didn't like that. And that's what I got. So it is what it is. They don't even, let's be honest. You know what? I'm going to take it easy.
No, don't. Be honest.
Bro, we talk about football, man. I don't even think of that sport. I think of the actual football. Football is only an American thing. Actual football is soccer.
Oh, okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, but in America, football is number one. It is what it is. The NFL, but the difference is, and I try to explain this to players, your league is number one because of your teams, not your players. In terms of players, the NBA is number one in America. We have the most notoriety. No kid goes into a sneaker store and says, let me get those Tom Brady's off the wall. They don't say that, okay? No one buys NFL sneakers. Rappers don't talk about football players in their songs, all right? Hollywood actresses and moguls and stars, with the exception of like a Travis Kelce and like a couple guys, again, because there's going to be exceptions, we all know who the basketball players were, girls or this and that. It's just different, man. I don't care what anybody says. You get mad at me all you want, man. I have none respect for football. And again, I'm only talking about wide receiver, tight end. And I didn't say they'd come in there and be Hall of Famers. I just said there has been guys who have done it before. Travis Kelce played basketball. I want to go work out with him. He played football. He's one of the best tight ends ever.
Fife Dog did mention Vinny Testaverde, just for the record. So here's what I think happened.
I don't know. There's some Randy Moss. There's some Randy Moss references. Yeah. There's some Tom Brady references. Again, there's exceptions. Sure. But like Josh Hart is a role player and he's on a Mike and Ike box. Like it's different over this way. That's all I'm saying. Like it's just different. You know it.
Oh, look. Here's where I think the conversation would need to start, but that's not what happened because it's just not what happens. Everybody would have to get in a room and agree that one path is easier than the other path. Okay? It can't be even. You have to say, in a vacuum, what would be an easier transition? I think Mo Alley Cox hadn't played football since his freshman year of high school and played at VCU, played hoops, and then was just like, okay, and then made a team. So there has to be one path that would be an easier transition than the other one. And then once we could all agree on that, the evidence is clearly in favor of your argument. But I think there becomes there's different things. Like I've noticed it with WNBA stuff. Like you can only say this about the WNBA. If you say this, then it's like, oh, you're one of those guys. You're like, what?
Exactly.
Somebody that's like, have you heard me talk about some of my least favorite NBA teams or players? Like what we do is we are complimentary and we are both critical. But there's certain things. It's like, wait, you're being critical of this. It's like, wait, I'm not allowed to be. So it's not apples to apples, but it's because of a basketball player and because you're not a Hall of Famer, then it turns like, I think JJ Watt's been like awesome after an early career of people getting like frustrated with his social media stuff. He was unhinged against you. James Jones was like losing his mind. And then your comeback to him, I actually thought was pretty funny because you were basically like, look at my career earnings. When you go career earnings at your level, when we're talking 8 figures plus, I think that's pretty good content there. But
I don't even want to do that because I hate talking money. It's tacky. The reason I did that with James Jones is because he got personal. First off, it was really weird with him. His reaction, like him coming at me. First off, I never said I was the guy that could play in the NFL. I was talking about like Zion Williams lining up there, tight end spot or something like that, linebacker. I don't know. I was like,
go ahead.
No, that's why JJ apologized. Remember, JJ came on the next day. He's like, yo, I didn't read his whole quote. I thought he was talking about himself. If he's talking about like a LeBron James, a guy who's like 6'7", 6'8", humongous guy. By the way, it's like, bro, I'm like 6'4", 220. I run a 4.5 and I have like a 38-inch vertical. Like I probably in my prime could have maybe trained to be a tight end wide receiver. I couldn't take that physicality. Football wasn't my thing. So I didn't say myself. But we're not going to do this thing where like people are like, Austin couldn't. Like, bro, if you saw me like walk next to any of these NFL players, I'm way bigger than most of them. I saw Darren Williams absolutely drag Frank Gore in a boxing ring. We got to stop doing this thing where like people think basketball players are like these little dudes. Like, bro, we're bigger than all these guys. All of them. All of them.
Right. But I do think the NFL argument and why they got so upset, so many NFL players get upset, is that there is a wiring that you need. That you need to play that sport.
110%. And I don't have it.
Right.
And I don't have it, which is why I didn't say my name on that list. But guys like Jalen Suggs and LeBron James grew up playing football, Ryan. Like, these guys played football and obviously were really good at basketball, so they went that way. Jalen Suggs was like a top football player in the state of Minnesota. Like, this is a guy who could have played football at high levels if he really wanted to. Same with LeBron James or an Allen Iverson, and the list goes on. So, like, we have a lot of these guys who are multi-sport capable, but because they are better at basketball, if you can play basketball, you play it. All right, there's guaranteed contracts there. There's way more in terms of just notoriety for a player. Our commissioner, everything that we have going for us, the player voice in our league is so much stronger. There's everything that folds to being an NBA player over an NFL player, unless you're a quarterback. All right, quarterback's like the one position that if you can rock out at, then my God. But again, I was talking about two positions, man, and it was just wide receiver and tight end. I'm not talking about anything else. By the way, the NFL and the rules are these days, they really prevent anybody from hitting anybody crazy. It's not like I'm talking about 90s football or early 2000s. I'm out there getting cracked by Ray Lewis, getting my head beat in. Like, they have all these different regulations and rules. They're coming out with new helmets and different things to make the rules a little bit more safer for guys. There's like this aspect of like NBA players aren't physical and like we can't take physicality. Like, bro, we got some dogs in the league, man. We play 82 games a year. You guys play 1 game a week. There's a lot of guys who can make that transition to being a tight end or a wide receiver. I'm sorry. I said 30. It could be 40. I'm not even kidding. It is what it is. I have all the respect in the world for NFL players. There's a level, like you said, of wiring that they have to have that you absolutely do, especially for most of the positions. For most, not all.
I'd say all. Look, I'd say all of them. I mean, we can talk rule change all you want.
was not back there kicking the ball with a certain level of wiring. He has no wiring. There's no wiring with him.
Yeah, but we're not talking about kickers and punters. That's not part of it.
No. But right. No, that's fair. But wide receiver, tight end, yeah, you're right. I mean, to go through the middle, you got to have a different level of wiring.
You're still going to get lit up a few times.
No, you're going to get lit up. Yep.
The first time you ever get blasted on a football field is like your baptism, where at a very young age you go, I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
or so. Like,
and as big as the NBA,
right. And as big as some of these NBA dudes are and how special their athleticism is. And look, I still agree with your general theory still. Okay, so we're on the same page there. There's some 6'7", 240 guys that the first time they actually felt a helmet in their back, they'd be like, nope.
100%. You're right.
I don't want anything to do with this. Right.
You're right. But just think of I said 30, right? That's one guy a team, Ryan. It ain't that crazy. I just said one guy per team could probably make that switch or change. And again, I'm not saying they're going to go be Hall of Famers or starting. There's 200 players on an NFL team. Just throw them in a practice squad. I don't know where they'll make it at. I don't have their success. Like, I don't know how good they'll be. I just have guys that I know if they trained, an NFL team would put their hands on them and be like, we'll take that chance. That's what I'm saying. Whereas the role reversal, what I should have said, you know why this was such an issue, to your point? I said 30. If I would have said 5 or 10, this wouldn't have been an issue because most NFL players would be like, yeah, he's probably right. Because there's no, you know how I know I'm right? The whole argument has been, since I've said it, all we've talked about, even in this conversation right now between me and you, we've only talked about NBA players making the jump. Why is no one saying NFL players over here? Do you want to know why? Because it's not possible. There's not like we're having this conversation. We're going like, Myles Garrett, I don't know. He could be a small forward. Get out of here. That's not happening. That's why the argument itself has already proven it. We've sat here for 15 minutes, me and you, talking about different players, different spots, NBA. We haven't even once went over to the other side and grabbed players and be like, well, he could play them, because it's not even a conversation. It's not even a conversation.
No. And the skill part of it is the part that was lost. And we'll end it here. Just because, as anybody knows that's ever played any level of basketball, like, you can see somebody else immediately and be like, oh, like, you've never developed any of these skills. You don't, like, you can't actually dribble. Like, I've seen NFL receivers dunk in celebrity games and then people freak out about it.
Bro, I've seen J. Cole dunk. Like, it doesn't mean he should be in the NBA. Like, bro,
J. Cole's got a little game, though. Come on.
No, but he can't play in the NBA. He can't play in the NBA. He was playing in the African League.
Although, I don't know. Up next, J. Cole, could he change the Western Conference Finals? I just think that the skill part of it, like I played against Usain Bolt in a game, and he's the fastest man in the world, and he was enormous. And when I backed into him, there was nothing. It was like, oh my God, this is like a cement wall. Like this doesn't even mean it. But he actually didn't know how to do anything.
Yeah, he didn't know what he's doing. Yeah,
right. Because he never had developed any of those skills. Right.
It just doesn't translate. And that was the point I was trying to make, is certain
you have
skills
to develop
of basketball.
Those things.
You have to
if you're not dribbling at a really young age, like
you just can't start dribbling at an NBA level. Yeah, so that was the point where football simply is catching a ball. Again, I know I'm dumbing it down, but catching a ball, and there's routes and there's all these different type of things and footwork. So I get all that. I'm just saying it's because of basketball, hezzy steps, Euro steps, crossovers. Some of that footwork could translate to you being on a line with someone and hitting someone with a step and then going downhill, running and catching a ball. There are some guys who can make that transition. That's all I'm saying. Simply put, I got nothing but respect for NFL players. I think the quarterback is probably the hardest position in sports. And I got nothing but respect for all of their players. I just think at the tight end, wide receiver spot, we have some athletes that can make that transition. How good they would be, I don't know. But there is a level of physicality that is crazy in the NFL, and you got to be wired different to play that sport, no doubt. You're right.
Hey, you were in the crosshairs for a little while. Welcome to the game, right? That is Austin Rivers. You can check him out, Pasha, his podcast, Off Guard, and part of our NBA coverage on the Ringer YouTube page. Good checking in, man.
Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do it again. Thanks.
Yeah. Have a good one, bro.